what's going on YouTube? Welcome to another video. And today we're at the tabletop again because it's another crappy day in the Midwest. Bluebird skies, cold, not a good day for fishing. And I've got here is my Kayak Setup black pack, and I'm gonna kind of take you, inside and show you what I carry whenever I go onto the kayak. So let's go from there. All right, so first thing, I'm gonna open it up here, and this is just on top, no particular order, but I've got my Z-Man Ned Rig kit, and I'll kind of show you here just various Z-Man related products. And with Z-Man, you want to make sure that you store them with other Z-Man products. The material they use, the ECHOMAP, will dissolve other traditional soft plastic baits. So I think they're made with plastisol, but these are made with whatever's in the ECHOMAP, so make sure that you store them separately. But just got a different amount of like TRDs here, tubes, craws, basically whatever came in the Z-Man kit. And then I actually wanted to see if I could use these larger Z-Man stick baits, just for a bigger profile, and then still using the different types of Ned rig heads I have. So a lot of these are still from the kit. I tend to go more weedless, so I have most of the weedless ones in another spot. I'll show you in a second when we get to it. But kind of these EWG, I don't know if you can see, Ned rigs here where you can kind of Texas rig it, and then you can make these weedless. They get snagged like crazy. So that's something that I bought. I think that was from Mustad. But there's a whole bunch of other alternatives out there. So just various colors here to use in the water. I've got some pink ones for when the water's super murky, like you saw in my last video. And then more traditional, like green pumpkin, blue fleck, and then green, more natural shad colors. Just kind of match the hatch. Like I always say, I should trademark that on the site at this point. And, just various different types. You can also just Texas rig these with like a regular EWG hook, but I don't know, the Ned style baits, because these will stand straight up in the water. If you take a look at them, they'll kind of like you're on the bottom and they'll sit like this, which is super useful. Looks like a bait fish, trying to feed or whatever, and pretty good for attracting bass. All right, next we've got this little orange box, and this one I just bought. So you'll see inside here, I've got some tungsten weights for like punching. I honestly haven't really used these much, but I do want to use them for when the vegetation gets heavy. And then I'll actually open this up here. These are just more Ned heads, EWG stuff, and these are from Z-Man. If you take a look, they've got a little bit heavier than you normally use, but the EWG, so you can Texas rig them and get a little bit more weedless. Just various sizes there, nothing too crazy. And then I think I just bought this cheap case on Amazon, so nothing too fancy. All right, what do we got next here? More Z-Man stuff. So this is just some generic, Chinese company that I bought off of basically Amazon, and just more Z-Man stuff. Again, like I said with the ECHOMAP, you want to store them individually. So there's an EWG hook, because I guess I Texas rig one of them, but just various different craws, shad style baits. This is the chatter spike to use with the, the chatter bait here. This is the Evo, just different colors that I've got here. So like I kind of just chose like one of each. I've got like 3 or 4 different colors in here, just depending on what I need. But I'm not gonna lie, I've used the same chatterbait for like a year now, like the actual bait, and so I just change out the trailer when I feel like I need it. But these Z-Man trailers do last a while. You do have to like kind of, this one's got kind of like a slit in them where you can kind of line them up, but they are kind of hard to get in. You kind of have to just, jerry rig them and figure out what works for you. You don't have to use these. I just find that they last longer, and that's why I'm using them with my chatterbaits. We've got just hard bait box, and then various other stuff that I've just shoved in here. So honestly, you can see like the crankbaits, and it started off organized, but eventually, like everything else, it gets a little disorganized. You can kind of see in here just lipless crankbaits, regular square bill crankbaits, random spinnerbait in here apparently, more. This is like a bluegill colored whopper plopper. Just storing a bunch of like random stuff I use, various diving crankbaits. This looks like a Strike King. I forgot how deep that dives, but pretty significantly because it's got a pretty big lip. Some frogs in here. More chatterbaits. You can kind of tell what I use a lot. Another whopper plopper, frogs. And eventually, it starts off organized with different stuff, and then eventually, 19 feet, that's pretty deep. But it starts off pretty organized, and then it devolves into craziness when you're actually on the water, and I haven't had time to really organize it. So I just kind of wanted to show in this whole video just basically you know, like what ends up happening to your tackle boxes and kind of what you got going on. Next box, we've got jigs and trailers, always tied on one of my baitcasters. Just various trailers here. These are not Z-Man, so these are Zoom brush hogs, I'm sorry, not brush hogs. These are Berkeley power bait craws there. I love those. Various jigs, a lot of black and blue. That's tend to what I, you know, fall back to and use. I guess like a peanut butter spec one, more green pumpkin stuff. So that's kind of what I use. You know, nothing too crazy. They're all very much cross-shaped. I'm trying to emulate the whole, you know, crayfish type of element going on and keeping them in line. You know, this one's rigged here. I guess I threw on a little bit of a creature bait here on this football head jig. So football head jig you'd kind of want to use during like rocky areas to really get in between there. But I tend to use, you know, this looks like I've got a white one. This looks like a swim jig here. So you could use those too. But I tend to fall back to, this is another swim jig, just black and blue, kind of another football head jig or whatever here. Fall back to these. That's just what works for me in cover, just to really jig trees, you know, logs, anything that's kind of sticking out of the water, rocks, to be pretty effective in that way. All right, what do we got next? This is a big box. This one I did not have labeled, which I probably should label. But yeah, it looks like I've got Kitechs in here, Kitechs. See, these are really cool. I haven't really used these much, but this is an underspin. I wanted to see if maybe this would be more effective during like, you know, spinnerbait conditions where maybe the fish aren't as active and a less intrusive looking baits, but it's got the willow blade here. And then I've got various sizes there. I've got some more bullet weights. I just knocked that over. This is another Z-Man bait. Kind of like a shad, a jerk shad or whatever. I think I have that just as an all-purpose or like, oh, these are, looks like they're melting over here. Jerk shads are stuff that I can attach to anything that kind of moves. Looks like I got another random spinnerbait in here. So when you start fishing, stuff ends up in random spaces. You just kind of shove it where it fits. But more brush hogs, more frogs. Hellgrammites here. So this is like, I think what I ended up doing is I bought a bunch of stuff from Bass Pro Shops and then I needed a box for like all purpose, so I threw it in here. It's not really a theme. You can kind of see the other boxes I have tend to have more themes, but you know, this is just in here if I need it. A lot of this stuff is just, you know, do you need it? You can take the box out, use it for something else. It depends on, you know, whatever your needs are. T-rig worms, or trig worms, because I did not put a hyphen or anything here. But pretty self-explanatory Texas rig stuff. Zoom trick worms in pink for the murky water. Zoom super fluke. Basically anything that takes like a generic Texas rig. Apparently I just threw all the way over here like an EWG hook where you can kind of just Texas rig things and use them that way. Got some Senkos in here. Smells like Zoom power bait. There's a super unique scent to the Zoom baits. So I think this is like a 12 or 10 inch worm for when, you know, like I mentioned before in another video, when the weather starts getting like real tough and you want like a more, you know, less threatening type of bait, but still get the same attached, you know, action and stuff that you'd want from there. More Zoom flukes. These are Zoom curly tail worms, I believe, or power bait, I'm sorry. And then I've got these bobber stops. So basically you kind of just slide them onto Texas rig onto your line. You can use one or two. You can like peg. These are lead weights, but I do have tungsten, like a lead weight there, so that when you know, on your worm here, you got some weight to get down deeper and it doesn't shift along the way and pick up a whole bunch of different stuff. And that's it for this box. So like, depending on what I'm Texas rigging, I may move these out. You know, it really just depends on what I feel like fishing. All right, we got a super small box here, unmarked, but you can probably tell what it is. So I built, it's harder to open than I thought. I built like a crappie panfish type style box. So I usually carry like an ultralight when I'm fishing, and just various stuff here, underspins, jigs. I think these are crappie magic, I believe. Just little things that, you know, will fit in their tiny little mouths. Some split shots, slip bobber, and these are more bobber stops. It fell off. Usually there's like a bead. Let me see if I can find one. Yeah, usually you can use the beads, or these just straight up, the knot just knots the line so it doesn't move around, and then you can adjust that. Split shots here, like I said, and then just various types of things here. There is an underspin here. So you can use like this underspin. So this is like a, I guess a Colorado blade, and you can attach it to like a jig here. So you could clip this onto the jig, and then now you've got like an underspin. Probably can't see that. So you can clip that onto a jig and then make it like an underspin. Little extra flash, little extra attention. All right, there's some random straddlers, but I will show you them. So Lastech diesel minnow, you've seen those in another video. Got some Berkeley power bait related to the crappie stuff. More power bait, crappie nibbles. And I just wanted to experiment with these. People recommended them, and I did catch some panfish on them. You know, like when the fishing is slow and you want to, you know, catch something. Unless you're me, then you just kind of give up and move on. But more power baits. Yeah, these came in a 3-pack, so you get all 3. Look at that. Backup spinnerbait. Fishing scale from Bass Pro Shops. More Senkos. Random curly tail. I think I grabbed those and I just threw them in here and haven't put them anywhere. Another spinnerbait. Free roaming spinnerbait in here. Looks like a nice one with those graphics. And more Z-Man stuff. So really that's everything that I keep in here. It's all mainly baits. Like you can, it's kind of a lot of stuff though. You don't need to fill out your black pack as much as like I did here, as you can see. But you know, if it fits in there, why not? So that's it for the video. I'll kind of provide some, you know, stuff on the side to really like let you know like why I carry it and stuff and what I'm moving out. And then maybe on the water, I'll kind of show you like what's on my rods. But thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.